Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Forgotten Generation podcast with your host, Troy Njenje Mbanga, on Be the Change Media Network, on a special episode on the National Youth Strategy. With me in today's episode is our ambassador, Georgina, who is a youth collaborator for the National Youth Strategy. And we have Lily Mott, a My Life, My Say representative. Would you like to introduce yourselves to our listeners and describe one word about yourself? On Georgina?
Hi everyone, I'm Georgina, I'm 18 years old and I'm a student paramedic, youth advocate and proud youth collaborator for the National Youth Strategy. The past 2 years I've been working alongside different youth organisations to uplift young people's voices across healthcare, politics and national decision making. And the word that I use to describe myself would be creative. I love finding different ways to express myself, not just through advocacy, but I'm an avid photographer and musician.
Hello, everyone. It feels so wonderful to be on this side of the mic this time. I know that I'm going to be editing this episode in just a couple of hours, probably. So I think that'll be very fun. I'm going to get to see the whole production process. My name is Lily Mott, and I work with Troy on this podcast and on Be the Change Media Network. I am also a engagement and communications officer at My Life, My Say, which is actually when I had the privilege of meeting Georgina. Full circle moment. I got to attend and co-facilitate the Hastings Democracy Cafe with Georgina, which was wonderful. And I got to do a few other Democracy Cafe focus groups for the National Youth Strategy throughout the UK. We ended up doing them in 9 regions, and I think I did maybe 5. So I got to go all the way up to Newcastle, all the way down to Hastings, and everywhere in between. So it was wonderful. And I'm super excited to be here and talking about the National Youth Strategy with both of you. It's going to be a very fun conversation. So super thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me, Troy.
Thank you so much, Lily, and thank you both for your intros and your words. It was so incredible. And so, firstly, on Georgina, for listeners listening to this episode, and I would like you to explain to them what is the National Youth Strategy?
So, the National Youth Strategy is a youth plan created by the government, which affects young people in England. And it's about consulting young people and engaging with young people to create real change for young people. It's about creating lasting and sustainable impacts to look at how the government can support youth in England. So that could be to do with access to education, mental health, opportunities, or just engaging young people in different spaces. Now, it's the first time in quite a long time that young people are not just being consulted, but are being co-created within different spaces to do with it. So me as a youth collaborator, as well as other groups of young people, are actively feeding into this project. And it's a strategy grounded by lived experience. And it's taking a lot of its impact from a youth survey where young people can share their thoughts and experiences through that, as well as different hack events and democracy cafes across the country.
Wow, it's just so incredible, this National Youth Strategy and the way that young people are getting involved in it and making on decisions as well. And so, what inspired you to be a youth collaborator for the National Youth Strategy?
I think for me, it was a bit of an unexpected experience. I saw the advert come out and I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. I love inspiring young people and I love being able to give them a platform to use their voice. So for me, this opportunity wasn't necessarily about the political side of it and the government side, but it was actually about being a part of this opportunity to represent young people and to make sure that their voices are heard. My background in kind of youth social action is around mentoring and volunteering. And for me, it was very important to share young people's voices who aren't often heard, and including a whole range of young people in this. As someone who's had first-hand experience when youth services aren't fully supported or where support isn't fully accessible, I couldn't sit back. I wanted to engage because I knew that there are young people across the country who benefit from local youth organisations and who can benefit from their voice being shared and being heard. And for me, being a youth collaborator, it gave me a chance to channel my frustration and experience into action and make sure that the strategy is not just a document, it's a movement.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you because it's all about movement. It's all about young people being the change makers and being able to make the decisions and being able to sit on that seat at the table with different professionals and different organizations and be like, actually, what does actually young people need and what do young people want? in their community, which I think is powerful, isn't it? And so for Lily, and what made My Life My Say on decide to be part of the National Youth Strategy?
So that's a great question. I think it's because of our very close ties with I Will, for one. I think that it was kind of a natural fit, the way that we do a lot of work together. We did the Give an X campaigns together last year, and that ended up encouraging almost 500,000 young people across the UK to register to vote, which was incredible. And so I think off of the success of that campaign, and just because a lot of young people have ties to My Life My Say and I Will, or My Life My Say or I Will, there's lots of overlap. We thought that it would be really beneficial to both get involved in this and also have UK youth involved. And the data collection side of it and all of the research was done by a firm called Savanta. And so that consortium came together and it was a really natural fit. I think it's also really great being on the My Life My Say side of things, but also being able to be an I Will ambassador. I think I've been able to see the differences in the way that the organizations work and kind of the strengths, and especially the differences in the young people that the organizations target. So I Will is 10 to 25. And then My Life My Say is more focused on 18 to 30-year-olds when it comes to the squad program and a lot of the leadership work that My Life My Say does. So I thought it was perfect for the National Youth Strategy because, of course, I Will does amazing things with especially 10 to, I feel like, around 21-year-olds. And then My Life My Say can kind of pick up with, 18 to 21-year-olds. And then it was interesting as well to get some of our squad leaders' feedback on the branding and the look and feel of the campaign. So making it feel a little bit more like a Give an X style campaign. So I think it was really cool that the organizations were able to play off of each other's strengths and work together so well. I think it's definitely something that we'll be doing for a long time to come because I think it works very naturally. So it was a wonderful. And then I think it was very cool to work with I Will ambassadors and the youth collaborators on the decafs and on designing the whole thing. I think just very natural. So that's a great question though, Troy. Lots of moving parts when it comes to the actual design of the strategy for sure.
Oh, that's great. I'm so glad to hear that. And so, because I think like on Georgina touched on about the democracy cafes and what actually are they in a way, and what do we actually do for young people, and do they actually benefit young people's voices?
I would very much hope that they do. I think that based on the data that we have, that they do. Democracy cafes are a reinvention of the 17th century coffee house tradition when politicians and people who were in places of power would often meet up in a coffee house and they would talk about issues that matter to them, how they could shape policy, things like that. And so My Life My Say has reinvigorated that tradition by going to where young people are. That's the first tenet of a decaf, is that it has to be, sorry, Democracy Cafe. I always call them decafs. So if you're listening to that and it sounds weird, we spell it like with a DE and then a cafe. So it's, if you hear me saying that, that's what it is. So decafs are always in coffee shops or they're in ice cream shops or other places that young people might hang out, because we always say that we like to go to places where young people already are rather than making them come to a place that they have to go out of their way to get to. So places that feel comfortable to young people, places that they might already be hanging out. So coffee shops are often a good choice for us. And then we have these discussions about first the priorities that young people have. So issues that they care about. We usually have them choose 3 issues. And then as a group, they have to decide 3 issues that matter to them collectively. And so we give them different options. And so that's kind of the icebreaker of the sessions. And then we talk about the barriers that young people might be facing in getting involved in solving those problems, or just barriers to themselves and their lives in general, or barriers that other young people might be facing in their communities. And so I think that one is a good one to get people kind of venting and thinking about some of the challenges that they might be facing. And then we dive into solutions. And then the third round is the ways that individuals, organizations, the government, other entities can hopefully contribute to those solutions, and how we can all be doing things to hopefully help young people in this process to make change. And so that one's supposed to be kind of a looking forward. What can we all do when we leave here? Georgina will definitely be able to speak to some of the differences with the National Youth Strategy ones, because they were a little bit more structured in the way that they were focus groups rather than free-flowing conversations, which typically democracy cafes tend to be when they're not part of National Youth Strategy. But yeah, Georgina, do you want to talk a little bit about that? It was definitely a little bit more structured, the one that we did together in Hastings.
Yeah, so my kind of general idea with it, 'cause I haven't been to many, but where democracy cafes nicely link into the national youth strategy is, like you said, about engaging young people in their natural environments, in the places where they feel comfortable. And where in the national youth strategy we're identifying key areas of things that need to change, challenges that young people are facing, it's really important to kind of get that national overview. So, where you might have young people down in Hastings and young people up in Manchester, they might face the same problems in different ways, or they might face a completely different set of problems. And it's identifying things that are different in them places and solutions that might be working really well for them, and seeing how we as national youth collaborators can represent these ideas and these mechanisms that are working in places already, and sharing them up to the government, sharing them with other youth collaborators and other young people to create this network, which allows for not only the change through this strategy and this report, but also this youth social action change where young people on the ground are having these opportunities to network and collaborate and share.
I love that because actually it connects young people together. Like I'm all in this together. It's not just like one young person making that change. It's everybody working in that change and working together in making sure that their voices are getting heard. And so what are the issues, Georgina, that young people are facing in everyday life and that government needs to take accountability for?
Absolutely. I think there is a really long list. Everyone is going to face a completely different challenge to their next door neighbour, let alone their friend on the other side of the country. And I think that's where the beauty of this strategy is. It's about identifying some of the key issues. And I think a topic that comes up a lot is mental health. We've seen this mental health crisis grow, especially since the pandemic, and we're struggling with local services. The young people are speaking up and going, I've asked for support, but I just can't get it. And that also links in with the lack of access to youth spaces and trusted adults, where these community based services aren't getting the funding from the government, or there isn't the engagement from the likes of volunteers. That's where young people are being massively impacted. It's the pressure from the education system, which all interlinks with it all, and the cost of living crisis, which affects everyone, not just young people. And you can see how all of these aspects interlink. You've got the food security, the inability to plan for the future, and where the government is still trying to understand these topics that young people are facing, these challenges. The government can't keep up because they don't know what's there. And that's where this strategy is going to help to try and create a future ready plan, which allows young people to not only thrive and get the opportunities that they deserve and should have access to, but it creates a sense of resilience, not just for young people, but for the country, and the accountability behind it as well.
Absolutely. And it's just so powerful you saying that. Like it's so important that like accountability for young people to have that voice and to actually and challenge on decision makers that are making the decisions for us. Because actually, and they don't know exactly what's going on in our lives. It could be maybe about the education system, for instance. Send support might need help, special educational needs and disabilities, because a lot of young people are very much struggling in that. And like I said about mental health, like there's lots of issues that actually professionals or like or because they're very much higher up are not actually listening and not actually taking note on, but like literally leaving us. But I think by doing this national youth strategy, it gets them thinking, it gets them actually thinking, actually, young people are the heart of this, young people are the voice of reasons, and they're the leaders of tomorrow. So we should be listening to them a bit better. So I think it's very important. And so, what are your hopes and ambitions and by getting young people's voices in the National Youth Strategy on Georgina?
I really want to see young people to see themselves reflected in the decisions made about them. I don't want these decisions to be made with young people in mind. I want them to be made for young people with young people. I want the strategy to be almost a living, breathing document that leads to action, not just a piece of paper that gets shoved in the bottom of the drawer. And my hope is that youth voice becomes the norm. It's embedded into decision making and it's not the exception. It means that consultations aren't just tick box exercises, but part of a culture shift where youth power is embedded at every level, both locally and nationally, within all levels of decision making.
Yes, I love that. I think it's so important. I think literally my hopes with this as well is that actually young people have a heart and so into this, and then government are listening as well to this. I'm actually trying to and say it, but actually not taking action, because I really want this to be something on special, something that actually young people are happy with, and for the future generation of young people. And they look at it and be like, this is what young people are saying, and this is what is making change here, and this is what is happening. And I really want young people to feel valued in their voice, to feel like they can connect with people, and that they can also connect with each other, because we all got lived experiences. And it's about championing our voices. It's not about leaving our voices and actually making ourselves very much vulnerable. It's about actually taking that accountability and making sure that actually we are being who we are and never giving up on our voice, because we have that lived experience. And we all want to do this together and not just one person. So I think that's what I would hope for this a strategy, make sure that we can make change together and not just one person. And so what would be your quote message to empower young people to have their say in the strategy, Georgina?
Oh, it's a tricky one. I think for me, you don't need to wait for permission to make a difference. It's your story, it's your truth, and it matters. So you need to speak up, show up, and shape the world you want to live in, because we're not the next generation, we are the now generation.
Yes, exactly. We are the now generation. I love that. Love it, love it, love it. And Lily, and have you got on a quote to sum up the empowerment of young people to have a say in the strategy?
Absolutely. I think that's a hard one to follow for sure, Georgina. I think that was wonderful. And I think mine would be for all young people to keep in mind that they are the experts of their lived experience. We say this a lot at My Life, My Say. And I think the young people sometimes just need that push. They need to hear that. Your lived experience is absolutely valid in every decision making process that there is, whether it's government, whether it's organizations. Your lived experience is so important and you're the expert in it. So this is your time to share that with government and to make your voice heard. This is your time to have your say. So I think everyone needs to keep that in mind, not just for the National Youth Strategy, I think just all the time. You are the expert of your own lived experience. So own that and make sure that you represent yourself, because only you know what you're going through and only you know what you need as well.
Love it. Absolutely love that quotes. Thank you so much. And before we end this episode, and where can you and go to have your say in the strategy?
If you pop yourself onto the IWIL website, and I'm sure Lily's gonna roll off the tagline in a minute, there's lots of different ways to get involved. So you've got the National Youth Survey, which is feeding directly into the strategy, as well as lots of different in-person events around the country in the form of hacks, which are local groups of young people coming together to discuss and proper deep dive into the results of the survey, as well as keep an eye out in your local youth organisations and educational institutes, because these areas might also be leading sessions to do with the National Youth Survey and the National Youth Strategy.
Thank you so much.
That was wonderful. Yes, absolutely. The IWIL website, and I'll link that down below, like Georgina said. And then also, you can fill out the survey until April 16th. So, depending on when you're listening to this, that might have passed, but you can also do the digital postcards, which is a whole different thing. That's also April 25th. And so, there's more information about that. And I'll link that all in the description too. Get those last survey responses in and then get your digital postcards in, because we're getting close to those deadlines. However, Georgina's totally right. There's a whole bunch of hacks around the country. So if you're in one of those areas and you want to check those out, that's also all on that IWIL website.
Thank you so much, Lily and Georgina, for coming on this special episode on the Forgotten Generation podcast to talk about the National Youth Strategy. And to have your say. And it's really important to have your say. And I really hope that young people listening to this have your say right now. And that's it for today's episode. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for having me, Troy. This is so fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been amazing.
Please support the podcast by subscribing and rating the podcast. I'd love to hear what you like and what could be better for future episodes. If you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram and iwill.troy, and also on X, iwill_Troy. Tune in to next week's episode.